Hi there. In this video, we're going to walk through how to use Stopwatch for HubSpot data and how to configure its settings in order to build this kind of report where we're analyzing the total track time split by HubSpot users and then comparing that to their, say, weekly or monthly capacity. So, for example, if this example HubSpot user their general work week is 30 hours. How much time have they tracked this week in comparison to that, just to get a feel for capacity, oversurfacing, undersurfacing, that sort of stuff. So the first step that we need to take is to make sure that Stopwatch for HubSpot settings are configured correctly in order for us to be able to build that kind of report. So you can do that in your settings, connected apps, click through to Stopwatch, into the settings tab. Make sure we're on the user settings tab here. And then for each of the users where we want to include in the reports, we're going to make sure that the one time log per session setting is enabled. So I'll just quickly go through these users. I can see that it's enabled for all of them. So that's great. I can move ahead. Now the next step is to create a custom property on the user object type. So to store the information about the individual user's capacity. So that can be accessed through the properties manager here in settings. I've just got to search for user properties. And I want to create a new property, and I'm going to call it something like, for example, hours in work month. You can name it whatever you like. The field type needs to be number, probably unformatted, and we can create that property. Now we've created that property, but now we need to populate it with information. So if we go back to our users and teams, and I'm just going to open up each of these users that we want to include in the report and populate that custom property that we've just created. So through the preferences menu, custom user properties, I've got a couple of examples in there I've worked with, but this is the one I've just created. So hours in work month. So let's say the typical work month, well, this work month is 140 hours for this user. This one might be 100. And finally, this one, let's say they're 125. So now the next step will be to create the report. So I'm going to go to reports. I'll create a new report. Custom report. We're going to use a dataset. So we've got to build our own dataset. The primary object type will be time logs. We're going to add a secondary data source of users. We want to customize the join to be an inner join, and the match key we're going to use will be owner for both of these object types. Now we want to make sure that we've got a few columns here in the dataset to be able to build that report. So we need to make sure we can identify the individual HubSpot users. So that can be by username or user email. So that's fine. We also need to be able to get a sense of when the time logs were created. So I can add a column here to add a new field. So I'm just going to search for create date time for the time logs. And I also want to add that custom user property that we created just before. So I'll search for hours. So I can see here that it's not actually showing up. So sometimes this does take a little while to show up in the data set builder. So we might just need to wait a while, refresh the page until you can actually see the custom property that we created. So I'll just pause the video here for now and come back once it's there. Okay, so now we can see that the hours in work month user property that we created is available to be selected here in the dataset. That took somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to become available here. So you might want to just sort of take a break at that stage, and then come back and build the data set once it's there. So I'm going to select that property. Now I also want to create a new data field. So I'm going to do that, building a custom formula. So this is going to be the tracked time property that I'm interested in. So total track time hours, but that could be billable track time days or whatever suits your requirements, divided by the custom user property that we created. So in this case, user hours in work month. So give that a title, and now I should be able to save that custom data field, save my data set, and now build my report. So first step there is to select the combination report type. I want to drag the user email into the x-axis, the user hours in work month into the y, and the custom data field that we created into the second y-axis. Now, once I've done that, I also want to configure a little bit more. So I'm going to change that to a percentage format. Get rid of the decimals. I also want to display that as a bar and not a line, so I can do that here. And I want to apply a filter to make sure that I'm only looking at time logs that have been created this month. So I can say time log create is this month. And that should be just about it. So now we can see that in this report, I can see an individual user has, say, 100 hours available to work this month, and so far that they've tracked only 6% of this time, whereas this user has 125 hours available this month and they've tracked nearly 30% of that time. So hopefully that's going to be helpful for you to build this kind of report, or gives you some ideas around other kinds of reports that you can build using time log data that's made available by Stopwatch for HubSpot. And you can always get in touch if you have any trouble building this report or any other reports that you're building relating to Stopwatch for HubSpot. So thanks very much.